Hi, this is Spencer Ingley with the anyFish development team, and in this video I will show you how to open up the anyFish editor, open your project, and then edit your project to create an animation. So in the last video I showed you that in the anyFish folder there's a project subfolder which has any project folder that a folder for any project that you've created, and then within that folder you have TPS, texture, paths, and fins subfolders. So I've gone ahead and put some data files in a project folder. So I've got a TPS folder that has a TPS file that matches the shape that I want to use to create my animation. And again, there's lots of flexibility here. You can use, in this case, this is just a TPS file that matches the Brachyraphis terabensis that I'm animating, but you could use a population consensus. You could use virtually any TPS file that you want to reshape your animation. Textures, I've gone ahead and put the textures file in here, which is the output from TPS transformer. Paths, this path file was created when I opened up a project and created a new path, so I haven't edited this path yet, but the file is in there and will be sort of resaved as I go through and edit the path. And then I've gone ahead and done a dorsal fin and a caudal fin texture image. So I showed you in a previous video how to make this dorsal fin. The process again is the same for all of the fins. In this case I've only done two, so it's incomplete. I'm using the default for the other fins. So I'm going to go ahead and open the anyFish editor, and I'll leave the settings as the default there. And again, when we get to this main menu, you want to select your project or create a new project. If you're selecting a pre-existing project, load it here. My model is a piece of lead in this case. I'm going to select this sample 1 path. My texture file here, which is the file that I just showed you, that was the output from TPS transformer. And if you have multiple textures in your project file, you'll be able to select among them here. In the TPS file, same thing. You can have multiple TPS files and select from a list of TPS files here if you wish. And when I'm ready to edit the path, go ahead and click Edit Path. So when you first open the anyFish editor, you'll see there's a Path Properties menu here. There's this little sliding bar down here, which is the key, which is the frame bar, set key, and delete key. So we'll talk about all these different options here that show you how to make an animation. So the default view here is a front view. Okay, so I'll sort of work through this menu from the bottom up. The first option is exit without saving, which is self-explanatory. Second here is save and exit, so this will save your project and exit the anyFish program. Here you can set the frame rate of your playback. I'm going to leave this at 15 frames per second. This is the play button, so once you've created your file, or once you've created your path, you can hit play and then watch the playback before you go and export it later. Here you have 3 different, actually right now there's only 2 that are activated, but 2 different camera views. One is the front view, which is what you can see right now, and then the other is the free camera. And I'll show you how to navigate through sort of this digital world using that free camera in just a moment. Here you have fin options where you can raise or lower the dorsal fin, for example. You can change the placement of the right and left pectoral fins, and also the anal fin. And you can move these vertically, so you can sort of pull them up against the body or lower them, and you can also move them from side to side depending on what your needs are. And all of those fin movements can be incorporated into the animation as you go through and do the keyframe process, which I'll show you in just a moment. You can also load guide sequences. So this image back here is a guide sequence from the front, and this is a guide sequence from the top. So you can see that there's sort of an image there of a fish. This was taken from a video where we exported the frames of that video, and I can now follow the path of that fish and match my fish to that path. If you have a video that you want to use as a guide, you can use that option there. In this case, I'm just doing keyframing. I'll talk about motion capture options in another video. And then here you can set the frame count. So I'll just have 90 frames right here, which would be only a 6-second video, I guess. So starting with the camera options. So if I hit free cam, basically now it's as if I were swimming through this digital fish universe. And to navigate this digital fish universe, there are two different options. Well, there's sort of two different tools that you can use to navigate it. One is WASD on your keypad, which on your keyboard, which moves you forward. W moves you forward, A moves you to the left, S moves you backwards, and D moves you to the right. So just imagine WASD are your 4 arrow keys on your keyboard. Your trackpad or your mouse and your clicker forms sort of the other part of your movement tools. So if you right click on your mouse or on your trackpad and then move the mouse or move your finger on the trackpad, you can sort of rotate your view around through space. So in this case, you're in one place and you're sort of rotating your view. And there's my fish. And then WASD will allow you to move forward and left and right or backwards through that digital space. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and sort of get a lateral view of the fish so you can see some of the fin options. So again, the dorsal fin slider will allow you to raise or lower the dorsal fin, which is useful for displays, for example. Same thing with the pectoral and the anal fins. So you can raise and lower to change depending on your needs. So I have 90 frames here, or 45 frames, sorry, to go with. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to keyframe, which is basically the process of making your video. So right here I'm at frame 0. This is the position of the fish at frame 0. If I want to move the fish, either rotate him or move him through space, I just click on the fish. So when these 3 axis bars show up, if you click on them and then move to the right or left, you can see that here I'm rotating the fish in the Y coordinate, along the Y axis. Here I can rotate it along the X-axis, I guess, and then I can also rotate the fish along the Z-axis. So this is sort of tilting him back and forth. So here I'm going to go ahead and rotate him so that the lateral side of the fish is facing my view. You can also go here and type your XY Z coordinates, and it will rotate the fish automatically that way. To toggle between the rotation option and the actual moving the fish through space, you use the E and R key. If you click on R, that will allow you to change the position. If you click on E, it'll go back to rotation. So R, E, R, E. So the R, same idea. You click on this little lever right here, move it up and down. You can move the fish up or down in space, right or left, backwards and forwards. And you can see here that you can sort of track him as he's moving along. So once you have the fish in your ideal position, and right here I'm going to go ahead and put his dorsal fin down just to show you as an example. I'm on frame 0, so I'm going to go ahead and do set key. So that'll set that frame, set the fish in that position for that frame. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and click to the last frame here, and this is sort of in a weird position over here, so I'm going to sort of slide him up and tell him I want him to be right here, and I want him to be rotated just like this at the last frame. So then I'm going to do set key, and I want his dorsal fin all the way up. What you can do now, if I sort of go through and click these frames, I've only assigned 2 keyframes here. So what it does is it interpolates the other movements. As you can see, he's sort of swimming through space until he meets this final position, and his dorsal fin is going from completely down to completely up. So what you can do is go through and set very specific positions that you want. Sometimes the interpolation is fine. Sometimes you want to go through and set a lot of keyframes to adjust its position, let's say to sort of do a rapid flashing of the dorsal fin or the go to podium. And if you want to do that, then you need to do a little more fine tuning in the keyframing. So one of the things that you need to do some fine tuning on typically is turns. If you leave turns to the anyFish physics system, sometimes they're a little bit sloppy. So what you want to do, so I started with a fish facing to the left. If I want the fish to turn around, what I don't want to do is just set his last position facing this way, because then it will use a very rapid, you very quickly rotate around and the interpolation doesn't work very well. So I'm going to go ahead and set his last keyframe right here. I'm going to go a couple frames prior, so let's just go ahead and see what he does. So he kind of swings around. We don't want him doing this exactly. Okay. This is a very short segment, so it won't illustrate this perfectly, but this will sort of help you get the idea. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate him around just a little bit this way. What you want to do is sort of keyframe at a higher density. You want to rotate you want your fish to do a behavior like turning, for example. So we go ahead and sort of keyframe at a higher density. And again, this isn't a perfect example because it's a relatively short segment. I'm going to kind of go through and set these keyframes. We'll see what he does. He's going to turn pretty rapidly because he's only going a few inches on the screen and turning around completely. So we'll go ahead and zoom back here and we'll see what he does. I haven't really fiddled around with this much, this particular animation, so I'm not exactly sure what we'll do. So we'll see. I'm going to go ahead and hit play. We'll see that he sort of goes and he swims, and he does sort of this kind of this funky turn. So again, that was a really short video, so it's kind of a funky turn, and then it gets all funky once he gets thrown back to the main position. But you get the idea there. So when you want to fine tune a turn, make sure you go in and keyframe the path very specifically, and not just rotate the fish immediately. Same thing with raising and lowering of the dorsal fin, or raising and lowering of the gonopodium. If you want any of those controlled behaviors, go through and do more dense keyframing of those behaviors. And in some other videos, I'll talk about some of those sort of specific tips, specific animation tips in a little greater detail. Here, I just wanted to give you sort of an overview of how the keyframing process works and how you can then create your animation. So I'm going to go ahead and save and exit, and I'm ready to go. So that was a quick demonstration of how you keyframe to start creating your animation using the anyFish editor program.